Right, finally, the simulation class. So let's have a quick look at that on the UML diagram. So the simulation requires us to know what the virus is that we're simulating, what the population is that we're simulating the virus upon, how many days into the simulation we are, how many people have been infected, and how many people have recovered. We need the following methods. We need a run method that simply goes through day by day, updating the situation until we have nobody left infected. Summary, this is output. This is the summary information that's output after the simulation is finished. The sim infection, that checks every day who's potentially infecting who, and just a routine to add up the numbers of people infected and recovered every day. Okay, so this is the simulation class. So we've got to make that in our simulation. So create our new class here, class simulation, and we need to add our attributes. Okay, I'm going to do that quickly because I've already written the program. So simulation, here's our attributes. I don't need to encapsulate these attributes, by the way, because nobody uses the simulation class, so you don't have to go through doing that right-click business. So the properties are the number of days into the simulation, integer, the population of people who the virus is affecting, that's a population. The virus, that's a virus. The number infected, that's an integer. And the number recovered, that's an integer. Okay. So those are the 5 things that we use. Now, when we create a simulation, we're going to need to know what the virus is, what the population is, and how many people have started with infections. And when we do that, we set the virus parameter v that's been passed into us, set that to our virus, set the p into our population, set the days into the outbreak as 0 because we've just created it, so it was 0. And the start infections can equal the number of people that are currently infected. We do have to then infect. So if I said the start infections was 10, I do need to infect 10 people, don't I? So what we need to do then is to go through the number of infections we want, going through the population of people. So we take the simulation population, we take the people list, and we visit each one of the first 10, if that was 10, and set their condition to infected. So infect 10 people, the first 10 people in the list. If start infections was 10, if it was 6, it'd be the first 6 people in the list, etc., etc. So that sets up, that's our constructor, and that sets up the simulation ready to go. And then we need to run our simulation. Actually, I'll come back to that at the end. First of all, we need to let's go back and let's look at this sim infection. Now, this is going to run every time and ask the question: has anybody potentially infected anybody else? So basically, we go through the population, person by person, and we'll call that person the infector. And then we want to know if it potentially, that infector person could infect anybody else in the population. So we go through the whole population list again. And this time, the second person could be the infectee. And then we ask the question, is the infector going to infect the infectee with the virus that's in our simulation? Remember that method we've written already, and that'll worry about if they're near enough to them, and if one of them's infected, and if one of them's not infected. It'll deal with all that. You don't have to worry about that anymore. All you have to do is check that anybody could potentially infect anybody else. So that's a simple nested loop there. The add up numbers. So at the end of the day, we want to know how many people have been infected, how many people recovered. So basically, we go through the list again for every person in the sim population people, and we check the condition. And if they're infected, we add 1 to the number infected. And if they're recovered, we add 1 to the number recovered. And we set them to 0 each time. So it just goes through the list of people, counting how many infected, how many recovered. So after every day, you've got a total. And then we have a summary information. I don't care how you do this, but basically, it's the bit that says the academic is now over, and it just outputs how many people were infected and recovered, etc., etc. Works out the percentage here, does all that business. Okay. And then the run. So this is probably the key one, I guess. So we're going to carry on while the number of people infected is more than 0. So we need to refresh the screen. We add on 1 to the number of days into the population. We update the population. Again, that does all the hard work for us, that method we've already written. That will go through and move and redraw everybody for us. And then we do that sim infection, which checks has anybody infected anybody else. Then once we've done all that, we'll add up all the numbers, get the stats, and then we will display, we'll clear this, we'll display at the top row the information about the current state of the infection. Yeah? So that's the information about the infection itself. And I'm going to wait a second because I'm in a big infinite while loop here going on for however long. So I want a bit of a pause. So I do a system threading.thread here on this line. And then I just check, if I want an early get out with I check, has a key been pressed? And if that key happens to be an escape key, then I break out of the loop. That breaks out the while loop and ends the simulation. And then it will go to the summary page, which will run the code after the while loop is finished. It will go to the summary page and display the information. So that's the simulation class. Okay, and then of course we need to create it, don't we, in that program, and then run it. So after the program is finished, and we've created our virus, we've created our population. We now need to create our pandemic. I've called create our simulation. I've called it pandemic. And it's a new simulation, and it needs the virus, this guy V that we've created. It needs the population, this guy P that we've created, and the number of people who started off ill, which is what we collect from the keyboard. And then we hit pandemic.run. This is the thing that runs that while loop, and so actually creates the visual simulation of the virus. And we are done. We have hopefully a running program. So when you run it, it will start. It won't crash. Check your code. If it crashes, you've done something silly probably. You've just probably got a spelling mistake or something. So I'm just going to run the coronavirus simulation. Press S, and we should get our people moving around and the infection growing and the totals appearing on the top here. We have a working simulation program. Now, should you have that working, well done. Control A, Control C to copy, create a new REPL, and paste that into that, and then you need to respond on this assignment with that REPL link, okay, so that it works on REPL 2, okay. Hopefully that will be successful. Again, any problems, I'm sure, just write a question at the bottom or contact your teacher, and I'm sure we'll help you out.